welcome to Thoughts with Thoughts. I hope everybody had a good Christmas. I don't know why. I just woke up from a nap, in all honesty, but I'm happy to be here. So, first thing is that I believe the next 2 weeks, I won't be doing these, but because my moderator will be out of town, but I will be uploading YouTube videos every single week. So make sure you're following me on YouTube if you're not already. Our discussion last week, I have already uploaded the video that kind of corresponds with a lot of what we were talking about. So if you guys want to go check that out, leave me some comments. I am actually looking at all the comments on YouTube right now. And I'm responding to them. So you can go over there and watch that and drop any ideas or like things you guys want to see, or for me to talk about. I'm going to do a common response to that video was a lot of people talking about, well, porn and OnlyFans is a part of this porn addiction epidemic we're going through. And so some of you were around when I did the stream previously here on porn addiction and the negative and positive impacts of porn consumption. And so I'm going to do a YouTube video on it too. But if you guys want to see that old stream, it's on the YouTube that I upload all these streams to. But that will be a video I'm going to do on YouTube next. I also have a video this week. I think this week I did, it's already filmed. It's 5 reasons you shouldn't start an OnlyFans. Just a bunch of other content ideas I have. But today I'm going to have the comments tab open. Hello. Hi. Okay. So today I wanted to talk about the nuclear family and how it pertains to child development, child flourishing, etc. This was actually an idea or somebody on Reddit who had watched my stream last week messaged me, and they also messaged me a bunch of studies and research. So shout out to him or her. And I looked at a lot of those. I didn't get to look at all of them because they sent me a lot, and I also did my own research, and it's actually pretty interesting stuff. I feel like a common narrative we're constantly hearing, especially from more conservative people, is like, oh my God, we must protect this nuclear family at all costs. And a 2-parent household with married parents is the best for children, no matter what. And now we're going to look at, is that really true? So a lot of times they throw out statistics that are accurate, that children from single-parent households are more likely to drop out of school, have behavioral issues, be incarcerated, get involved in crime, etc. But they don't really look at maybe some of the reasons why. They just stop at, it's because it's a single parent household and there's not 2 parents and 2 parents aren't married, and that's what's causing all this. And that's actually not true. Actually, let me see. I took some notes. So really, yeah, I know it's a great topic, because and especially one of the reasons that I think it is such a great topic is we now have a lot of single mothers by choice who are choosing to have kids, or like we have more with the technological advancements we have ways and donor children that are starting to become more and more common. And the research that we have on them is actually really interesting as well. So, really strong, stable relationships. I mean, the overall takeaway is strong, stable relationships, education level, and ability of the mother is actually the biggest factor when it comes to what's best for child development. And a lot of times these statistics stem from the fact that single parent households or single mother households, a lot of the time, and single father, but most of the time a single parent household has the mother and not the father. They have lower socioeconomic status, they have more turmoil, they have less access to resources, and these are actually what causes those issues in children, not the fact that it's just a single mother. And a lot of times when it's adjusted for that, when stats are adjusted for socioeconomic status, social network, etc., we don't find these big disparities, which is really interesting. So like, yeah, what matters most is mother's education ability level, family income, and quality of home environment. And also, I think it's really interesting that now this traditional two-parent married household is becoming less and less common. It's actually in the minority now, and more and more families look different or they're blended. There is a lot of people, I think millennials are not as invested in marriage necessarily, but they still, a lot of them want children. So it's actually interesting because, and a lot of very college educated and educated women are choosing to have children out of wedlock. And although fertility is down, actually more women are becoming mothers. And the biggest increase have come from groups who are in the past far less likely to have babies, which is highly educated women, women over 40, and women who have never been married. And there's been a notable rise in babies born to single moms by choice. And these are women who tend to be older, more educated, and have a higher income. And the studies we have so far shows that these children perform just as well across every measure as much as children who come from two-parent households, which is really interesting and kind of speaks more to the fact that it's about quality of parents and not necessarily quantity. And when I say this, like, I grew up with both parents in the household. I'm very close with my father. So this is not me saying that, oh, kids don't need a mom and a dad. But it is saying that this narrative, this rhetoric of like, oh my gosh, there's no, especially when I feel like a lot of times people are, the conservatives or this mindset is pushing people to get married, and especially women, don't get educated, get married, have family. This is what's important. And this is what's best for your children, when actually getting educated and having a higher income, et cetera, actually is better for your children. Yes. Now, if you have two parents in the household, that can help if you don't make enough income on your own. But when you do, and when you're able to provide all the things that a child actually needs, it doesn't seem to have all these negative, disparaging effects. I don't care about traditional family structure at all. They just need to love each other without it being conditional. Investing. Interesting you mentioned this previous topic, not a conservative. I probably disagree with you about porn's effect on people in the business around it. Yes, you can see my old stream, or you can wait for my YouTube video. I think the porn addiction issue is very interesting, especially since it's not considered an actual addiction in the medical world by the APA, and there are reasons for that. I think a lot of the porn addiction comes from people who, it's like this thing, and I, even the highest numbers I've seen, the actual numbers are like 4% to not even 10%, but the highest numbers I've seen are like 18% of men report that they either have an addiction or they don't know if they have an addiction. I think it's just one of those things where it's like, it's natural. And like, okay, let's say I wanted to stop eating food and then I get hungry and I eat food. I'm like, oh shit, I have an addiction. Like, it's not actually an addiction. So I think it's an addiction for very, very small minority of men, but these men are very loud online, right? And they're going to spend a lot of time online. And I think that has blown this up. And if you look at the actual data surrounding it and the fact that it's not actually an addiction by any measure in the medical world, it's interesting. Not saying there aren't negative effects to porn consumption, but there are also positive effects to porn. But okay, that's a different issue. I don't want to get it tangled in with that. But so yeah, I had a single mom with lots of turmoil. I escaped the curse. I believe a well-adjusted parent could raise kids well on their own. Divorce that wishes he had more time with kids. Yeah, and if you have two parents and you guys are co-parenting well, that has been shown to be perfectly fine for children. And actually, like, I think I wrote down like a stat on it. Yeah, moms with 50-50 parenting schedules are 54% more likely to earn at least $100,000 and twice as likely to earn $65,000 annually than moms whose kids are with them most of the time, and more than 3 times likely to earn $100,000 plus than single moms with 100% time responsibility. So it's having that kind of dynamic setup, or that kind of any type of good co-parenting relationship is actually going to benefit the child a lot. And a lot of these issues that we see in a lot of these single parent households are not the case when we see the children are being born through surrogacy or donors, et cetera. These people usually are prepared for children, and they have kind of already, like, there's a study I'm going to talk about where a lot of these women who choose to be single mothers by choice have set up a good social network around them in order to make sure that their kids have everything that they need. Also, a lot of the research that is done on single parent households does involve children who have experienced divorce or separation or some type of trauma or loss of a parent, etc. And that obviously is going to impact children negatively. And that has been replicated through many studies, that children who experience any kind of divorce that messes up their routine, etc., they do experience a negative impact on that children that never did don't experience. What's on the docket for today, Jasmine? We're talking single parent house, or we're talking about the nuclear family and child development. And if it's really the case that single parents by default are worse for children than a household with two married parents, if that's really what kids need. So that's kind of what we're talking about. But so this is a study, I think it's Cambridge. Single mothers by choice do just as well as two-parent households. A study comparing the well-being of children growing up in single mother by choice and heterosexual two-parent families found no differences in terms of parent-child relationship or child development. A lot of these women chose to have kids, but a lot of the women in this study wanted to have a partner, but time ran out and fertility became an issue. But a lot of these women received a higher education and had meaningful partner relationships in the past. And that is a theme we're going to see throughout all of these studies, is that the times when the kids end up performing just as well as these kids in these two-parent households, it's because the factors such as income, mental health, physical health, etc., of the parent is good, and then it kind of adjusts for that factor. And then we see that it's really not the fact that two parents that are married need to be in a home. It just needs to be that children need to grow up with a family that has resources, good socioeconomic status, good relationships, strong bonds, etc. These are the actual things that help children, not the fact that your mommy and daddy are married. As long as all their needs are met, then they're fine. I think so too. And that's what the studies seem to be showing. So this is another study from the European Society of Human Reproduction and Embryology from 2016. So it shows that there were children born single mothers. There was no significant difference between the two family types when adjusted for things like income. However, higher levels of financial difficulties within the solo mother families and higher levels of parenting stress were associated with higher levels of child adjustment problems. So same thing, between the ages of 4 and 9, donor-conceived children in solo mother families generally seem to be doing well. However, we don't yet know how these children will fare over time or what they will think or feel about being donor-conceived and or growing up without a father in the home as they grow older. So with the donor children, they were a little bit younger. And at least up till now, they're seeing that these children do just as well. But I think it's newer. This growth, it's growing, but we have to follow these children throughout their lives to see if maybe issues arise later on. This study, it's a UK study and this was a self-reporting done by 7-year-olds, around 12,000 7-year-olds, and they looked at children with two parents that were married, a child with step parents, or one biological parent and one step parent in the household, and one single parent. And when they adjusted for class and education and everything, and they asked these kids, are you happy all the time, sometimes, or never? It was equal across all groups. They also repeated the study with 11 through 15-year-olds, and the results showed the same thing. Things like getting along with siblings, having friends, not being bullied. These were the things that really correlated with children's happiness levels or self-reported happiness levels. It didn't make a difference when you adjusted for class and education, whether the child was in a home with two biological parents, a biological parent and a step parent, or a single parent. Another study that I found really interesting was that it summarized data from 30 previous studies with lesbian couples and heterosexual couples and found no differences. In fact, any differences they did found that the children from these lesbian households tended to do better. However, these lesbian couples tended to be wealthier and more educated than the general population. Some similar conclusions were reached in a publicly available 2015 review of 79 studies conducted by Cornell University's What We Know project. And I'm reading directly from this. Okay, so maybe having two moms is as good as having a mom and a dad, but what about the children of single parent house families? Are they worse off? The question is a very difficult one to answer because single parents differ from co-parents in a whole host of ways, including having lower average incomes, fewer years of education, higher levels of depression. If we simply disregard these differences, then yes, children from single parent families do show higher levels of behavior problems and lower test scores. But once these differences are controlled for, any disadvantages shown by children of single parent families become small to non-existent. Particularly important is the extent to which the child's home environment includes emotional support and cognitive stimulation. Of course, this is much more difficult to do when one parent is around, but when single parents do manage to provide this type of environment, it just about wipes out any disadvantages for the single versus two-parent families. The importance of the home environment means that just staying together for the sake of children may be counterproductive if it makes it harder to create a family space that is emotionally supportive, which is clearly difficult if the parents are fighting. And I think that's been known for a long time, that any household where there's turmoil, where the parents are fighting, where they're not a healthy relationship doesn't exist between the parents, that is far worse for the child than being with a single parent. So again, this push towards marriage and you need to find like the love of your life and blah blah blah, and then 50% of the time that ends up in divorce, which is worse for the kid. And you don't need that is not the way. That's not what you should be focusing on. I guess that's the goal. The point of this is what you should be focusing on when you're thinking of having children, or if you want children, is not how do I get a married couple and we just have this nuclear family. You should be focusing on other things. And one of the things you probably should be focusing on is making sure you can afford to have a child, and that you are educated. And these are the factors that seem to really affect child development, not so much that you are married and go to church every Sunday. And so especially if that disruption occurs through divorce or something, that makes it worse. And I think part of the reason that it's starting to become more and more evident that these children don't have the disadvantages that people once thought they had is because it is becoming more common. And studies have actually shown that Black children don't face as many disadvantages of a single parent household as white children do. And a lot of times, and one of the theories for that is that Black children, it's just more common. They're just born into a single parent household, whereas a lot of white children endured the trauma of a loss or a divorce or something happened in order to make them be in a single parent situation. And that is actually what caused a lot of the negative effects of it. So yeah, and another study, data was collected from 27,834 households in the UK between 2009 and 2017. Children who have always lived in a single parent family scored high or higher as those who have lived with both parents in terms of life satisfaction, the quality of their peer relationships, or their positivity about family life. So that was interesting. So what do you guys think of all that? It's kind of what I wanted to talk about. One thing that's interesting to me is the technology that is available now, and how women have the option and are choosing the option to have kids later and later, even when they may not be as fertile. And a lot of times the women that can't afford these things because they are expensive are women who have they're in that higher income bracket. And they are choosing to have kids later and later. And this is another talking point we hear a lot is, oh my God, these women are going to blow, and now they're going, their time's going to run out, whatever. And it's interesting because a lot of times when you bring up, well, there are options out there and technology is it's almost like, you do see sometimes these people are very adverse to like IVF or surrogacy, et cetera. They don't like it. They don't think it's natural, et cetera. And it's like, Okay. So, it seems like they just want to push you to be in this heterosexual, married, nuclear family and have babies as soon as possible. And that's what they think is best for everybody when that's not what is backed up by the data. A family's class will definitely be impacting a child's life way more than their parental situation. Yeah, 100%. This is not to say that nobody should have kids unless they're, in a great financial situation, or that I'm judging anybody who has kids when they haven't been. That's not the point of this. The point of this is just looking at child development, child flourishing in general. And I think this is a common talking point where we hear that, the destruction of society is due to the fact that there is too many single parent households, and that, we need to combat this problem, and that women aren't wanting to get married now as often, and that's going to cause problems for children. And that's what has kind of motivated me to do the I'm like, really? Is it going to cause problems for children? And now I'm like, I don't think so. The fact that women have technology and options hurts the patriarchy, and that's why people put. Yeah, I agree with you. It's not even fully developed yet. Like, it's literally like they're saying that it will be in the future, that there's like now these like labs that can kind of be like an artificial womb. Not even a real thing yet. And you see a lot of them freak out about it. Freak out. Like, oh my God, they can grow babies now. The government's going to grow babies. It's like, I don't know. It's funny. Recent discoveries regarding the sociological of the family unit is a big reason why there needs to be humanistic support for the family varieties that we're seeing more and more. Yes. And I'm very happy that the heterosexual married nuclear family is becoming less, is the minority now. That makes me happy, because I don't think that there's actually anything wrong with, as we've seen, with other types of families. And I think that the more and more common it is, the more and more that will be evident. Even when I was growing up, I mean, my parents were together, and I grew up in a pretty well-off area, I guess, overall, and a lot of people had parents that were divorced, and blended families, etc. What else, guys? Howdy. And yeah, I agree with Hazard Stint that this pushing this one family unit and one family structure down people's throats, which is what a portion of our country is doing, doesn't do anything to help people, especially because most people are not in these situations. They're becoming more and more like crazy. I don't know if it's just I think that, but I feel like with the way that they responded to the Respect for Marriage Act, by saying things like, when people would bring up, well, what about divorce? They're like, yeah, divorce is terrible. There shouldn't be like no fault divorce. Like, that's what caused this. I'm like, oh, like they're just going out of their damn minds. I think Matt Walsh made that point. So did Ben Shapiro, actually, that part of the issue in society is that we started allowing people to get divorced through no fault divorce. I'm not familiar with that act. I'm Canadian. Oh, the Respect for Marriage Act is just, it's actually a compromise to codify gay marriage. That I thought was like a done deal, especially based on the fact that the vast majority, or at least the majority, I think it's over 60% of Americans support the act overall. So, or support gay marriage, but you still have these, a lot of the main conservative pundits that are still like, no, this is wrong. And it's like, it's a losing issue. It's kind of like abortion. Like, most people support abortion, and a lot of people, when they're running, it's not a smart political strategy to run on anti-abortion. It's also not a smart strategy to run on anti-gay marriage either. But Unfortunately, a lot of vital support is being withheld from churches to certain members of the community simply because of their non-conform. Yeah, and that's really, really sad. And that's part of my criticism with the Respect for Marriage. I get it's a compromise and it's better than nothing, but I don't believe that churches or any religious institution should have the right to discriminate based off of their beliefs when it comes to immutable characteristics. And I consider like sexual orientation to be an immutable characteristic. That might be a stream I'll do in the future. But yeah, and you know what? Churches actually are a really good resource for a lot of people. And depending on what community you are, where you live, maybe Hazard Stint can speak more on this. It might be the best resource, right? It might be where people get help and resources, like maybe the spot to go for that. And for certain people to not have access to that, or for people to not have access to that equally, is really concerning. And this act doesn't really protect against it. That would be an interesting stream. Yeah, I could do, because this, I mean, it's kind of the same. What's happening now is similar kind of to the big cake thing that happened years ago, which is like, should a baker have to bake a cake if he bakes cakes for wedding? A gay couple came in. He said he doesn't want to bake them a cake for their wedding. Should he have to bake them a cake? This was the case a long time ago. Now that we have a conservative majority in the court, we have a case that I think they're going to rule. We're pretty sure they're going to rule differently on. And it's about a web designer, I think, who doesn't want to design a website for like a trans person. I don't know, something like, I don't know the exact facts of the case, but it's kind of that same question. And we'll see what they say. What a dumb case. Yeah, it's basically a case on religious liberty, and the courts have made if it's an expression of art, like if it's your art, then you don't have to use your art to support an idea that you don't agree with. And I think that's what the case is going to rest on here, is they're going to say, okay, how much of it is artistic expression, etc. Whereas like if a restaurant, for instance, can't deny gay people a chance to eat at the restaurant, but a painter or, somebody that is, their work is part of their artistic expression, they're going to try to make that a separate category. I think it's bullshit. Oh my God, Alahasi. I know you're from Canada. You're like, how are you guys still on abortion and gay marriage and not discriminating against gay people? But that's where we are. As gun control has shown us, public approval only occasionally means politicians will act accordingly. This time, Clarence Thomas's inability to keep his mouth shut made Democrats latch onto one thing before the Republicans take the House in January. They would have never acted if Thomas hadn't spoken. I think they should have acted. I think they should have codified gay marriage and abortion a long time ago. And it was actually, Obama ran on it, but then said it wasn't a priority because we had Roe in place. But again, like I said, it's better than nothing, but I wish it would go further, because this is just my opinion. I'm sick of religious people or religious institutions having all these special caveats and privileges and, all this special status, even when taxes and stuff, which I'm like, I don't see why they deserve that more than anybody else. To me, if I like the way the Respect for Marriage Act, and I haven't fully read it, but from what I hear and from what I have gathered, it seems like if you're in a place of, like, if you're in the church, like the church can say, hey, we're not going to marry you, or we're not going to recognize your marriage. But outside of that, the marriage will be recognized. But I'm like, why do they get that? Why? I don't give a fuck what you think in your church. Like, if you personally don't believe that a man and woman should get married, that's fine. But I don't believe anyone should be able to deny them the same rights as heterosexual married couples because of their personal beliefs. Obama evolved on gay marriage when public approval hit 51% in 2012. Yeah, I agree with that. That is unfortunate. But again, we at this point with our political parties, we're just, we're the bare minimum we gotta accept here. Nothing but heteronormative partnerships are approved by the church at large, with a few outliers like Methodist. This cancels out so much community support since these people will continue to be sick. Yeah. It's really sad. And my heart goes out to people who, like, for instance, me, I never grew up religious. I'm an atheist. I have no desire to be accepted by the church. But I can imagine that for many people who grew up loving the church and who really believe, and they don't want to have to give up their faith and all their resources and connections at their church, because the church is a great sense of community. It's really sad that because of their, I believe, because of the way that they naturally are, or even if you want to believe it's because of their choices, that they lose access to that. I think that's really psychologically damaging. But when it comes to that, I guess groups and organizations have a right to have their own beliefs, but to be able to outwardly discriminate and say your marriage isn't real here because of what we believe is not okay. Right? Literally just turn it into any other type of context. And a lot of conservatives are like, oh, you guys just throw in interracial marriage when we don't have a problem with interracial marriage. Well, the reason that we throw in interracial marriage is based on the same thing, because somebody could easily come up and say, I don't believe that people there should be interracial marriage, so I have a right to not recognize your marriage. Like, no, you don't get to do that. Just because religion is now far more sympathetic to interracial marriage, and this has not always been the case, especially in certain parts of our country, doesn't mean that it's not also discrimination what you're doing. Ooh, interesting topic. What's happening? The topic kind of shifted, so now we're just chit-chatting. I agree, they low-key run the country. Who's they? I think he means like churches. We are a secular country. We're supposed to be, and I think I'm not saying we aren't, but I think that all of these carve-outs and churches getting like tax exempt status, and I guess now they're allowed to discriminate and the rest of us can't, and they have all these, I think, religious privileges that are unnecessary to me. The hypocrisy that hurts is that the church is supposed to take a strong stance against sin in general, so that means greed is just as bad as abortion, same-sex marriage, etc. Yeah, I think greed is harder for them to tackle. It's not as evident, and I think if they were to actually take a stance against everything that was sinful, they would have to take a stance against themselves and a lot of their most, enthusiastic supporters and churchgoers, so that wouldn't be very practical for them. But you'll rarely hear a popular preacher speak out against greed or wealthy people or corporations. Yeah, it is interesting. And I know conservatism isn't entirely linked with Christians, and especially the evangelical wing of Christianity, but a lot of times I'm just like, okay, interesting. The percent of people who are religious is getting lower each year, especially with young people. Yeah, I like that. And that's part of the reason also the desire for like a lot of us young people, we're not like, oh my gosh, I want to get married before the Lord for the rest of my life and vow to, like, a lot of us are like, yeah, it doesn't seem like that's the move, which is kind of what we were talking about earlier when it comes to these two-parent married households having children. Like, even when people ask me, do you want children? I go, I don't not want children. I probably am in the crowd that I want them later in life. And I would like for them to have a great father, but I also don't think that I need to be married and bonded to this person for life before the Lord. And I think that that's fine. And I think my children have just as much of a chance, as long as the other factors are there, to grow up happy and healthy. Numbers are really crazy about 1 out of 4 identifying as non-religious. Yeah. It is really interesting. Now, I think, like I've mentioned this before, we do see an increase in younger people believing in like other, like being very spiritual in other ways. But I prefer that to religion, just because, like, I mean, if you're going to believe in woo-woo nonsense, in my idea, at least have it be woo-woo nonsense that isn't bigoted. Please. And I think for me, that is preferable for that reason. It's a nice idea, though. I think people are just in their own heads because of the communities they were raised in. Yeah. And to me, it's crazy. It's so crazy to me. And maybe this is just me, because you guys know how, and Hazard Stint probably out of everyone knows how, like, he thinks similarly to me. The fact that so many people have taken on their parents' beliefs or taken on the beliefs of their society is so crazy to me, because it's like, don't you ever like stop and think like, oh, do I just believe this because my parents said? Like, especially when it comes to religion, I'm like, how crazy of you to think that you were just happen to be born in, like, I would question that shit every day. I'd be like, how do I know? Like, you know, I think there is this arrogance and that a lot of human beings have, and it's not like blatant, it's not purpose or even arrogance that they identify at, like they don't notice it really. But I mean, I was just I'm reading a book right now on this, and even the arrogance of praying for shit, like, oh, like even like little, especially mundane shit, like praying that your sports team wins and that the other side loses, even though they're praying that their team, like, it's like if there is this all-knowing being and you think that your little itty-bitty problems and all of your little thing, I'm praying for my Lamborghini or whatever. And I think I agree. I think this is the same with all this new manifestation show. I manifested this, I manifested my new house and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's like, it is arrogant to think that you just pray for shit or you just ask the universe for shit, even though everybody else is asking the universe for shit too, and you're special and you deserve to be listened to, especially when so many people are suffering and their prayers or their manifesting isn't working, yet you think that my little prayers and I want my sports team to win and I want my Lamborghini. It's like, I don't know. The book is do I have it here? It's actually a really easy read. And it's really good. It's to the point. Where is it? I guess it's not here. It's, oh yeah, it is. This is the book, Why There's No God, Simple Responses to 20 Common Arguments for the Existence of God. Such an easy read, super to the point. Each chapter just has like it's like here, God, oh, this is where it is. God answers prayers, therefore he must be real. And the part I was talking about was at the very end. Or not at the very end. There's just so much good shit in this book. Yeah, similarly, consider that many prayers are inherently selfish. While you pray for your niece to get a much-needed heart transplant, someone else is praying for his organ donor's son's life to be spared. Whether you're praying to win a war or a football game, you're also praying for the people on the opposing side to lose. To assume that God is not only personally invented in your life, but your problems are ultimately more important than other problems he may be asked to solve is both selfish and absurd, considering the incredible amount of individual problems and concerns of every human on this planet. And I definitely extend this into manifestation and this whole like law of attraction. And I just, to me, it all reeks of that arrogance. When does it come to a point where you question things / everything? The only time when I had to question things was in history class, but it wasn't asking me to question myself. It was questioning society. At what point does someone become self-aware? Some people never. I don't necessarily think it's an age thing, but obviously as you advance and, oh, there was a comment before this. If you, as your brain becomes more developed and etc., you're probably like, you know, you're going to question things in a different way when you're my age than in your 20s than you did when you were 7. But I think some people's brains, I really don't know. I think some people's brains are just wired differently. But I do think education, and this has been shown, education, which will help you develop critical thinking skills, will make you more likely to have that healthy skepticism than somebody who, grew up in a rural environment where everyone thinks this way, nobody questions things, and nobody goes to school and learns a different worldview or a different perspective and doesn't have an opportunity to develop these skills. That person is going to be far less likely to question the things around them. Now, that's why I am weary of calling this arrogance, because I think it's ignorance more than arrogance. But I think there is that element of it that kind of we all have, or a lot of human beings have, when it comes to anything. I think even marriage, like to think that you have the emotional capability to promise something to somebody for life, especially when, if you just look around you and you see the statistics, you would see that other human beings, for the most part, don't have this ability, but you have this ability and you're special and to me, that's arrogant. But the people that are getting married aren't thinking this way. They're just thinking, I'm in love with this person. I want to devote myself to this person. So it's not like they're sitting there selfish and I'm better because I'm sitting here like, oh, I'm not arrogant. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that as human beings, it's almost like we have this, we turn it off when it comes. We think we're special, we're different. Our prayers, our manifestations, our marriage is better than special compared to everybody else's. It depends if your household supports a truly open dialogue. I think my parents wanted us to be smart and do good at school, but they did not give any space for doubting / disobeying God. But I would argue that your parents wanting you to be smart and doing good in school, and you doing that is part of the reason that you're here now, questioning and doubting and disobeying God. So if your parents kept you kind of dumb, maybe you wouldn't be here. So we had our doubts, but we had to keep it quiet. It makes it really hard to talk about bigger aspects of faith, personal autonomy, and communal tradition. Yes, that's very true. And I think most of the and this is something I hear a lot is religions. I think particularly Islam, because I listen to a lot of. If you guys were to look at my YouTube watch history, you would be so confused. You'd be like, is she like a evangelical Christian? She seems good, but then she listens to. I am like, I just love to hear people talk that I completely disagree with, because I think it's really interesting for me, and it's more intellectually stimulating than just being in a confirmation bias bubble and just hearing shit I agree with. But they're always like, we're special because we allow questioning, when they do to a degree, but then it's like you can't go past, like you can't question whether there is a God in general. And it seems like once they give you an answer, you're like supposed to accept it. Like you can't be like, well, that answer is not good enough. Like you're not allowed to do that. So it's interesting. If God didn't want people ringing him up all the time, then why did he give him so many problems? I don't know. This God character, I have questions about the way he does things. I think the part about God answering prayer is that scenario when you buy a new color card. Things, yeah. So it's frequency illusion, and I think with prayer in particular, that was the section actually before this. And I think another great point was brought up in this that me and Hazerston already talked about, was that one is it's that, when God answers your prayer, then God is so great. And when God doesn't answer your prayer, then God works in mysterious ways and we don't know why. But I think more damaging is sometimes it's that, maybe God isn't answering your prayers because, people have this idea that maybe it's because I'm not good enough, or I didn't do something wrong, or blah, blah, blah. Why? And then it kind of becomes self-blame, which does happen in some religious communities. And and that is psychologically damaging. What did this say actually? You prayed incorrectly. You don't believe hard enough. God doesn't see fit to grant your wish. Some of these explanations shift the blame onto a person who may already be suffering. If you had simply prayed better or been a better person, bad things wouldn't happen to you. If you're too unhappy with your life, perhaps you're just stupid to understand what's best for you. This is another thing. Oh, God works in mysterious ways. Anything that happens to you happens for a reason, so you should be okay with it all. It's kind of another, I think, terrible trope for religion. The level of potential psychological damage this could inflict on a person is huge, and this kind of emotional torment cannot be justified in the name of an unsubstantiated claim. That's crazy that I opened to this page, probably because I took a picture of it yesterday. I never thought about that. That's an interesting way to look at it. The arrogance bit. Yeah, I always was like, you know, this feels wrong, especially with like this. Every time I go on TikTok, I see like, oh, I manifested my dream life, and it's because I did this, 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 and this. And I was always like, do you not look at the world around you? Like, do you just not look at the fact that people are really suffering on this planet, and that you think that they just need to ask the universe, apparently, or maybe they're just not asking the universe enough. The universe just prefer to grant your wish on this nice car you wanted. And it's the same thing, I think, with prayer. Although with prayer, I think prayer is almost naturally embedded in us. Like, we have this human desire almost when we feel helpless to pray. And I think this is like an evolution. Like, literally, even me, I'm as atheist as they fucking come. But like, when I don't have time to think, like when I'm not sitting there trying to be rational, and like I'm in an emergency situation, or I'm about to get in the accident, I'm fucking praying. Like, I may not be like Lord up above, but I'm like, oh shit, whatever fucking spirits that be, like, please, like, make me get out of this alive. Or, it's like natural in us to pray, and it makes us feel like we are doing something when we're really not doing something, when we're kind of taking it out of our hands. And another thing, and the reason that is because another thing that I read that I thought was from the same chapter, which was the last chapter I read, is it says harmful effects of prayer. Aside from the potential psychological damage prayer culture can inflict on those whose prayer go unanswered, prayer can be actively harmful toward people and communities. For example, parents who choose to pray for their children rather than seek medical assistance put their children at risk of serious illness or death. In the United States alone, about 140 children with easily treatable conditions died between 1975 and 1995 after parents withheld medical attention, relying on prayer and faith. Similarly, while prayer is frequently a person's first response to a disaster, it's often the least helpful. Instead of praying for disaster victims, it would be more helpful to donate blood, send donations, or volunteer. These are actions that can actually have a positive effect on somebody. And to me, that last part was like, oh, wow. How often do we see when something bad happens that people, they feel bad and they're like, well, I'm going to pray. Well, you're praying because that's the easiest shit you can do. If you couldn't pray, or you didn't believe in prayer, then maybe you would be compelled to action that could actually help. Another thing from this chapter was they've done studies, like a study of heart patients in 6 different hospitals sought to determine whether prayers from strangers would have any effect on a person's recovery. After carefully following the recovery of 1,800 heart patients for 30 days after the surgery, researchers found absolutely no link between prayer and recovery. Who would have thought? But like I said, I think it's this natural instinct in us, especially if you're a believer, to be like, oh, I'm going to pray because I'm doing something so great. I'm praying. I'm using my prayers to help this person. It makes me feel good inside, but you're not doing shit. You're just not. And if you want to pray, fine. But we'd prefer if you help in some other way that is actually shown to help. Every time I hear Islamic conservatives, I feel like I'm going to get a stroke. I do sometimes, but sometimes people are just like so out there that it's like amusing. Especially what's been really interesting to me is seeing Andrew Tate convert to Islam, because it's like perfect. It's like they're like soulmates. It's been really fun for me when I'm high to just like watch these videos and think about it. So you're saying love is worth doing while marriage is not. That seems like a personal opinion. Beyond legal benefit of the latter, neither is an infallible promise. They're continual relationships you work to maintain. I'm not saying love is worth doing while marriage is not. I think it's a personal choice. I just think that human beings were not designed to promise ourselves to somebody for the rest of our lives, because we are not. I think human beings have the ability to promise themselves to someone for the foreseeable future, but life is not foreseeable. That's my argument. And I think if we think logically about things, life is not foreseeable. And even people with the greatest intentions, I mean, most people that get married have the intent to stay married. More times than not, doesn't work out. And even in the times it does work out, we don't know how happy these people are, if they would have been better off not being together anymore. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying, personally, I would feel emotionally irresponsible telling somebody that I want to be with you till death do us part. I don't know who I'm going to be in 10 years. You don't know who you're going to be in 10 years. I don't know if somebody different is better. It's, to me, that's what I'm saying. I don't think you have to promise yourself to somebody for the rest of eternity in order to have true love. I don't think that at all. That's what I'm saying. You can work to maintain them. Yeah, that's true. But I don't think I'm going to promise to work to maintain a relationship for the rest of my fucking life. I don't think that's practical. That's all I'm saying. And when I talked about arrogance, I was speaking to the point that everybody that makes this decision thinks that they do have this skill. And I think it's arrogant to think that you have this skill when the majority of human beings don't. Also, the factors that do make it more likely for couples to stay together, like a strong belief in faith, God, I don't have any of that shit. So you're going to be more likely to stay in a marriage if you think that it was ordained by your sky God. I don't think that. So that's what I'm saying. And I think a lot of younger people don't think that, and a lot of young people are therefore not getting married, or, they're more likely to get divorced if things don't work out. I go back and forth with the God idea. Sometimes I'm like, wow, this is too good to be true. Next time I'm like, where is this God now? Yeah, it's definitely an interesting subject. I don't know how it always ends up going back to God, but I think the reason, I was thinking that the other day, I was like, this isn't like, why does this always go back to this topic? And I think it's because a lot of the other things I talk about, that is kind of the foundation, like morals, values, the way the world works, critical thinking, skepticism. A lot of that is like the foundation is, well, what do you believe in, why? And I think if your foundation is belief in something based on insufficient evidence, then that is going to inform your beliefs on pretty much everything else. And there are people who have a belief in God but are pretty rational and logical in other areas, but they have to carve out this exception. But the problem is, if you carve out the exception for one thing, there's nothing that really stops you for carving it out in other areas, even if you don't do it. It's not consistent intellectually. It's kind of my point. Praying is good to keep them in mind, I think. It's another way to comfort in a metaphysical way. Yeah, but it doesn't do shit. So it makes you feel good. All praying does is make you feel good. And maybe if the person knows you're praying for them, they might also feel good. But like this example, if there's a fucking hurricane tomorrow in, Florida, and a lot of people are dying or whatever, if I pray for them, that's just making me, I think it's almost selfish in the sense of like, if I'm going to spend time worrying about this or being upset about this, why not put it into action that's going to be helpful? Why not try to donate money, time, spread awareness, whatever I can do. Now, if you can't do anything, fine, pray. But there are usually ways that you can help that you forego because they're less convenient, and you pray because it does make we're selfish creatures in a lot of ways. However, we are also empathetic creatures in a lot of ways. But I think this desire to pray for things when we know it doesn't do anything a lot of the time is just in an attempt to make ourselves feel better. Young people don't know that people change, and you need to be there for all your person's changes. Meditating, eating a sandwich, or sleeping on it also makes you feel good, but people don't suggest that enough. Well, I think like if you're feeling bad for people in a dire situation, eating a sandwich doesn't make you feel like you're giving as much as prayer does for some people, and like I said, I think it's not even really a religious thing. I think it's just a human thing. Like even me, when I see something sad, instead of praying, I'm like, oh my God, I hope that they get better and blah, blah, blah. That's not really the issue. But all my hopes and prayers aren't really going to help those person. Now they're nice and they make me feel better, and it's good that I want those things for that person. I think that is a good feature of human beings, that we do feel for other people and we want the best for them, and we don't want people to suffer. And when we see other families suffering, we can think of ourselves and our families and be very, very sad for these people. I think that's a good thing. But I think there are times when this prayer or this whatever, this desire of ours to just hope and pray for things to the sky, our time could be used in a better way. And there are times where it can actually be damaging, such as the case where people deny their children medical care because they think that prayer is doing something. Wow, talking about this God topic makes me think of the show Lucifer. You look like Eve from the show. Have I seen Lucifer? No, I haven't. Well, I hope she's cute. Anything else, guys? I know this kind of derailed. But I get it, because, I'm talking about the nuclear family and why people push the nuclear family. And a lot of times people push the nuclear family with it being backed by an objective morality that states that this is better for everybody. And it's not the case. Check out transcendental meditation. It's supported by science, being amazing for your amygdala, prefrontal cortex. Anyway, I replaced prayer with it after 30 years. That is a really cool, I want to look at that. Me and a Hazard Stint have been really we've been using the Waking Up app by Sam Harris to do meditation. I need to get back into it because I had no previous meditation experience at all. I'm not meditating, doesn't come easy to me. My brain it's very hard for me. But I've gotten better at it, and I want to continue to get better at it because I think it does have a lot of benefits that are rooted in science. But I think before I just thought of it as because a lot of it is also woo woo, and it was hard for me to separate the two. But there is good. I mean, like I said, Sam Harris's app. I mean, Sam Harris is one of the 4 horsemen of atheism, and he's also a neuroscientist, and I like the way he lays out meditation. Because that's the thing. I'm if someone's going to teach me meditation or guide me through meditation, I don't want to hear at the end of the meditation, oh, ask the Lord for all the things that you want. I just didn't want that. When you get in that deep, no shit, a happy place. Yes, I'm trying to get in that deep, but it's going to take some time. It was great having you. Yeah, thank you, KWF999. It was great having you. I hope you're going to come back. I don't know what meditation even does. Look it up. It does a lot. I used to be one of those meditation is just for yoga people. I literally thought that it was, but look up all the benefits that it has. And I have even seen myself reap some of those benefits already, and I'm not far into my journey at all. It's just consciousness, mindfulness, meditation is so good for you when it comes to your experience on this earth as a human being and in your mind. Hazard Stint said this before, but most of us completely have the ability to just be lost in our thoughts forever and ever and ever and not even realize that that's happening. And meditation it's kind of like exercising your mind. And I think Harris said this, and I agree with him, that for a long time, even physical exercise wasn't something most people thought is necessary. People are just oh, and then recently it's become oh, you need to exercise your body. You need to go to the gym. You need to do, I think that's going to become the same eventually when it comes to exercising your mind and practicing meditation, consciousness, mindfulness is exercise your mind. And it's hard. It's just like it's hard to get into the gym. It's hard sometimes, most of the time, for me to put aside 10 minutes to do it. And it's not easy, especially me. I'm very fidgety, and it's hard for me to sit and do something. But I think it's very useful. So your comment about prayer gets into how atheists are sometimes seen as being pointlessly mean. If a grandmother wants to feed the homeless, isn't a Christian nationalist, and genuinely isn't hurting people or her words or actions, what's the problem? Is it okay for people to be comforted by a belief if others don't agree? I think this is a great comment. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think that I'm not telling her not to believe. I'm not telling her that what she's doing is wrong. In fact, I have said multiple times that this belief is comforting to many people, and many people do good with it. Actually, religious people are very giving. They're more giving than non-religious people, and they're actually happier a lot of the time, not always, than non-religious people. But that doesn't mean that I can't scrutinize the ideas behind it. And I think that is part of the beauty of living in the marketplace of ideas, is I can respect you without respecting your ideas. So I think this idea that atheists are mean because they criticize religion, and religion is somehow not supposed to be criticized and it's supposed to be some sacred, belief. I think that's very, and I think different religions take it to the, like, I'd say in particular Islam and a lot of the Muslim community is terrible on this. Like, they're like, well, we can't draw Muhammad, so you guys can't draw Muhammad. It's like, no. If you don't want to draw him, that's your fucking choice, but I'm going to fucking draw him. You want to come behead me now. And I'm not saying that's the situation here, but this idea that scrutinizing religion makes you a mean person, I think is dumb, because religion at the end of the day is an idea, and it's an idea that informs a lot of people's beliefs in a lot of ways, beliefs that are not only misguided but sometimes damaging. Maybe not in the case of this particular grandmother, but it hurts a lot of people in many ways. And so I think it's something that should be scrutinized. Even beliefs that don't hurt anybody, I can still say that belief is based on nothing and it's dumb, and you're not really doing shit by praying. And if you think that makes me mean, so be it. Even as a baseline, giving yourself like 20 minutes a day to let your bull. Yes. If you don't even want to start with like a guided meditation, what I first did is just take a second or like time every day to get in touch with your senses. So like I would be like, okay, what can I hear? What can I see? What can I smell? What can I feel? And that kind of does cool you down. All right, anything else, guys? I'm trying not to click. Jazmen, nice hair. Thank you. My real hair, my natural hair. Love your streams, but it's ironic to praise a marketplace of ideas having just shit on Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro actually says facts don't care about your feelings. He's like, I don't know if he's the original person that said that, but that's like his main thing. And it's linked. It's literally pinned on his page. And I don't think Ben Shapiro would care if I said Judaism. I mean, he might care. It's stupid, but I don't know. What did I shit on him about again? Oh, I shit on him about him pushing conservative, the nuclear family onto people. I think that's me literally engaging in the marketplace of ideas. I don't think engaging in the marketplace of ideas means you need to agree with Ben Shapiro on everything. I don't think that's really being in the marketplace of ideas. I think that's being a Ben Shapiro simp, personally. She's disagreeing. Yeah, I'm not canceling Ben Shapiro at all. I actually think Ben Shapiro, in a lot of ways, which isn't saying much, to be fair, is favorable to like the Matt Walshes and Candace Owenses of the world. Agreed. Imagine standing. Yeah, Ben Shapiro. Exactly. I mean, if Ben Shapiro really supports the marketplace of ideas, he should be fine with me disagreeing on his push for the nuclear family. I don't think that means that I have to like be like, oh, Ben Shapiro. I don't support Ben Shapiro in the slightest or agree with him at all. So then what's your issue with what I said? I'm not American, but isn't the core ideal of Republican? Are you saying the nuclear family is the core ideal of the Republican? In a lot of ways, that's what they say it is. But then, like we talked about here, they like we have to protect the nuclear family because it's best for children. Well, that's what I talked about here. I'm like, it's not necessarily best for children. What's best for children is X, Y, and Z, and you can do that without the nuclear family, and then the children are fine. And then they don't like that. Matt, what is a woman Walsh is something else. Yeah, Matt Walsh is a very interesting being. I went on his YouTube earlier and I just went through and I tried to see how many of his videos are about gender shit, and it's like damn near 70%. Like this poor man is just flooded with thoughts of like people's gender identity like 24/7. I feel. Also, I think Walsh he's definitely authoritarian right. Ben is, I think, more libertarian right, but he's starting to like his anti-marriage, anti-abortion. These are all authoritarian right views. Walsh wants to ban porn, ban gender transition, jail people who like, and like, you know, the difference is like I did see, although I think Ben should have gone a lot further when like Elon was doing the mass suspending of accounts. Walsh was like, yeah, it's fine, I don't care. Like he's like just straight up about it. Ben is like, you know, he like tiptoes around it a little bit more. Yes, I feel like I spend a lot of time watching them because I like watching creepy, like things that give me like, you know, like people are like, are you a horror movie fan? I'm like, horror movies don't really scare me. Like they don't give me that feeling, but like Matt Walsh gives me that feeling. So when I want to like creep myself out and like I'll turn off all the lights and I'll just watch Matt Walsh and I'll be like, ooh. Because I just like, I'm like looking at him like, you have a trans fetish. Come on, you have a trans fetish. It's okay. That's terrifying. Yeah, he's a very terrifying person. Candace is pretty bad too. Candace is like off the deep end with like she thinks she's so smart because she just doesn't believe in science or education or anything, and she thinks that her own mind like can figure like she like unlocks all these like it's like so fascinating to watch. She's Clandis pain. Yeah, a lot of people call her Clandis. She's also very intellectually dishonest, and she's very like aggressive in the way she talks, which is also very creepy and entertaining, at least for me. So yeah, because so many people are stuck in their bubbles, I feel like a lot of people don't venture out and watch shit that they disagree with. So I'll take giving them a few extra views by watching their shit for my own pleasure. I think praising the marketplace ideas as exist right now is an oversimplified way of supporting progress in society's evolution. Conversations with like-minded friends and in communities like this are great, but the American discourse right now is a-okay with both sides zing every shit idea. Okay, I think praising the marketplace of ideas exists right now is an oversimplified way of supporting progress and society's evolution. Conversations with like-minded friends and communities like this are great, but in American discourse right now, it is a-okay with both sides siding every shit idea. I still, maybe I'm just dumb. I don't get what you're saying. Are you saying that I shouldn't shit on the other side that has different ideas? I'm not shitting on him. Like, I'm not like he's ugly. Like, I'm saying that what he's saying is false, and here is why. Isn't this what the culture wars are all about? I think we need a simplification of your comments. Yeah, maybe it's just me. I think praising the marketplace of ideas as exists right now is an oversimplified way of supporting progress in society's evolution. I support progress in society's evolution. I don't know how this is an oversimplified way of doing that. Conversations with like-minded friends and communities like this are great. Not everybody in these chats has been like-minded. Maybe in this one I've just gotten lucky, but look back at every other. I mean, you're not like-minded here, so there's that. I just talked about how I purposely consume most of my content like is content that I disagree with. So I'm not somebody that only, you know, engages with like-minded content. So I'm not sure what your point is. Both sidesing every shit idea. American discourse right now is a-okay with both sidesing every shit. Yeah, I'm gonna need, if you want to clarify, you can. If anyone else wants to comment before I leave, go for it. Like I said, I don't think the next 2 weeks I'm gonna have streams, but check out my YouTube. Jazmen content. Yeah, my content's fire. Whether you disagree with me or agree with me, you'll like my content. I think he's against conservatives. I think he is saying that staying with the same lifestyle is the easy way to think there is progress. Am I staying? I think I'm doing the opposite. I can literally lay out Matt Walsh's top 5 arguments, Candace Owens' top 5 arguments, Ben Shapiro's top 5 arguments. Like, I can lay these out for you because I spend time listening to them. Yes, I get stupider, I think, from it, but I try to counteract that with reading. And I spend a lot of time, like, sometimes I will pause their videos and I will out loud rebut their arguments, which I think is a fun practice for anyone to do to develop their critical thinking skills, is find people. Now, if people can challenge in a better way, which I will admit Shapiro does more so than Owens and Walsh. Walsh, I just think, is a fucking psychopath. Like, I am literally like, whew. Thank you for always joining. I even saw an article about you, but forgot the media name. Yeah, you guys Google me. There's some people that have written about my story if you're interested. And I also explain my whole story on YouTube and on previous streams. And as time goes on, I'm going to do more and more little story times about it. I already did the story on how my parents found out. You guys also should want to, you guys want to hear my OnlyFans stories, because I have some, I've called people's mothers. I've called somebody's mom. I've called 2 people's moms, and I called somebody's work one time. That was, I don't fuck around. Okay. If you annoy me, if you disturb my peace, I will come for you. What happened? I'm going to do a TikTok on it and probably a YouTube. Maybe I'll do a YouTube on all 3 of them because they'll be longer, but I'll give you a little short story. But I'll do the one that I called his work. But yeah, I kept blocking them. They kept making new profiles. I kept blocking them. They kept making new profiles. So I'm good at finding people if I want to find people. So I found him. He was like younger. He was in, I'm not going to tell you his name or where he was from, but I found out that his dad ran a bunch of businesses, and his son was coming to take over these businesses, whatever. So I found an auto repair shop that they ran, called the Auto Repair Shop, pretended to be my own lawyer, and was like, hey, can I talk to so-and-so's father? Meanwhile, I just left work to go do this. I just went into my car. I'm like telling the receptionist in my phone, I'm like, I'll be right back. And I'm like, hey, can I speak to so-and-so? And they're like, he's out of town. He's out of country for business. I was like, okay, can I speak to? And I said this person's name, and they're like, oh, he's not in yet. And I was like, wait a minute. This guy is a fucking douche. And I have a feeling that these people that work at this auto repair shop don't like homeboy either. I'm like, let me expose him. So I'm like, oh, he's harassing women. I literally went through, I was like, he's sending pictures of his shit, and he's like, this is what and like, I know that this guy went back to the rest of the people in this auto repair shop, and they had a fucking laugh. Like, this guy was humiliated. And he even, when he messaged me, he's like, did you tell him? I'm like, yeah, I told him fucking everything. So it's probably went all around now. Anyway, I will finish the story later, so make sure you follow me on my socials if you guys want to hear what happened. But I promise it was justified. When somebody says no, leave me alone, you leave them alone, or else you deal with me. And I'm fucking crazy, and I will call, and I made up like 30 statutes that I was like, this person violated. I'm filing this suit, that suit. And I really didn't have grounds for this, but I made him think I did. And I told him that his mom has to call me because he was going to work. Then he turned around and went home because his mom called him and was like, what the fuck's wrong with you? It was a whole thing. I don't doubt what you're talking about. I just think probably most American discourse is productive right now. I just don't think most American discourse is productive right now. Everyone thinks the other side is idiotic or evil. I'm sorry if I seem rude. Nighttown was pretty close on what I meant. Okay, if you're talking about demonizing the other side, I think I agree with you that I see this on both sides, like where liberals think every conservative is just like evil, and they like think it's natural human instinct, but it's not correct or useful to demonize the other side and to see things in black and white. We're good people, they're bad people. That's not the case. So I agree with you on that. Any advice for people taking the LSAT next year in hopes to get to law school? LSAT. Oh, LSAT was a while ago for me. Any tips on LSAT? I'm going to give you a tip that I didn't really use, but practice tests. Take practice tests the logic games for me was the hardest. So I spent a lot of time focusing on logic games. My strategy is this doesn't work for everybody, but I am very bad at taking practice tests under test conditions because I'm a lazy fucking piece of shit. And if I'm not forced to take a test in test conditions, I'm not going to do it. But what I would recommend is, like what I did is I would go through LSAT questions, and if I could answer it, or I would try to guess to answer it, and then I would immediately look at the answer and the explanation. And that is the key. If you're getting whatever you're getting wrong or whatever you don't know, you want to see as many correct answers and answer explanations as possible, because that's how you're going to learn what they're looking for, and two, how to answer questions correctly. And a big tip I would give in test taking in general, I saw so many people in law school not use this, and they're just working harder, not smarter. Your girl's all about working smarter, not harder. Get into the test taker's head and figure out what they're actually trying to test for, instead of being like, oh, what is the answer? Be like, why are they asking me this question? What are they looking for, et cetera, et cetera. So many people in law school, they would like want to know what every little nuance and every little exception is. And also another test taking tip is spend your time accordingly. Spend your time. This is not as much of a thing for the LSAT, because the LSAT is not testing you on any actual knowledge that you have. It's testing your ability to analyze, problem solve, etc. So it's not like you have test material to really study. It's all about practicing. But I will say, when you do go to law school, the people that are in these review sessions raising their hand about every little question, the people who spent 2 weeks studying the rule of perpetuities on the bar exam when it comes to property, when you may get one question on it, are idiots, and they're wasting their time, and they don't do as well as people like me did, who spent way less time studying, because I was like, this is going to be one question, so I'm going to spend and if I don't understand it in 20 minutes, I'm just not going to fucking understand it, and I'm going to lose that fucking question. But this is going to be 50% of the exam, or this concept is going to be the bulk of the exam, so this is what I'm going to spend my time focusing on. I bought a huge LSAT book a few months ago. I don't understand any of it that I read. I can learn, write, read, memorize, but I generally don't know if I can go from zero comprehension of a method of thinking to understanding LSAT questions. I'm trying to remember what I used to study for the LSAT. I remember it was a program with like a white guy that was talking, and you had a book, and you would go through. It was one of the big LSAT. What was it? I don't remember. But I'm going to be honest, like, I'm not somebody that does well with like Barbary or any of these, like, even for the bar, I use critical pass flashcards. I didn't take any of these classes, and that's because I'm fucking lazy, and I can't spend 400 hours studying for the bar exam. I'm either going to pass it by studying for 2 weeks, or I'm going to fail. I don't have and now I'm a fucking sex worker, so that's probably has to do with it. But I'm all about smarter, not harder. And with any test, even in law school in general, I'm a big fan of Quimby. No reason to read an 80-page case when you can Quimby it and get the black letter law out. Maybe that doesn't work for everybody, but it works for me. Did you spend a lot of time studying for the LSAT? You spend like 2 weeks studying from the bar, so I'm assuming not. I'm going to be honest. So on the LSAT, I wanted to go to a school local to me. And I just needed like a 150 to get into that school. So I knew I was smart enough naturally that I could score a 150 without really studying much. So I didn't study much. I ended up scoring like a 167. So and to be fair, I got lucky with what was on the test. I feel like the test catered to my strengths as opposed to my weaknesses. And if another test had come up, then I wouldn't have done so well. And that's what made me end up going to the school that I did. But my initial plan was actually not to do that well, because that didn't align with my goals. And I ended up outperforming, because I'm very good at standardized tests. It's just one of my strengths. I'm very not good at a bunch of other shit. I'm very, very bad at detail orient. Like the blue book, when you get to law school, like fuck the blue book. Like the blue book actually makes me want to gauge my eyes out. Like any type of, if an essay style exam questions, I fucking love, because they're not looking at, oh, did you italicize your period properly, or did you put the comma? Oh, this is not how you reference volume 2 of section 8. Like I hate that shit. But that is very important in law school. And I got docked on a lot of my actual papers for not having the perfect font in my references and shit. That to me is, my brain is very bad at. Even reading, I feel like I read every third word. Oh, big tip for the LSAT. Read every, like, to me, this is my downfall, is I will, and this is why I didn't like multiple choice exams and I did worse on them, because I am like the perfect person to get tricked by a trick question because I don't fully read the question. And please, please, please fully read the question. If I can do it, as painful as it is for me, you can do it. Read every single word of the question, because if you miss a word, that is exactly what they're looking for to trick you sometimes. I do get there are plenty of resources, not that everyone else can definitively answer this, but I'm trying to figure out if going forward is possible given my complete lack of initial comprehension, or if I should be realistic about what have you taken a practice? Like, I remember for the LSAT, I took a test before even studying anything, and I got like a 150 on it. And so I was like, okay, I don't have to do much, because that's what score I was going for. But no, I don't, there's no way you have zero. I'm looking at you type right now, and I can tell you are capable enough that you do not have 0% reading comprehension. Like, you don't. So I don't know where you got that from, but you're not at the level you think you are. And I definitely think there's a lot of room for improvement. In fact, people who think they're really, really bad at something, like I thought I was really bad at logic puzzles. It just takes those few tricks to like go, and you're like, oh, okay. And then you're smart and you can figure it out. I feel like you should make a guide for the LSAT and a guide for the bar on YouTube. It would easily get a lot of views. I don't think people should follow my methods. I could make a guide for procrastinating, cramming losers who take a lot of risks and are good at standardized tests and need like those like crunch time tools. I can make something about that, but I would not recommend that people take my course of action when it comes to studying, because one, I had 30 million mental breakdowns in law school because I waited till the fucking like last minute. I think my third year, like if a paper was supposed to be submitted at 8, like let's say 8 p.m., there was not one time that it was turned in before 7:59. Like not once, not proofread. So like I don't recommend it. How tall are you? I'm 5 feet. Anyways, sorry for all the law talk for those of you not interested in that. Okay, I'll do this one too. I don't know anything about law school, but I know that in math class, it's best if you read the question on the end of the prompt, then read the prompt after. I don't know how it works. So, some people, so for the reading comprehension on the LSAT, that was something that a lot of people recommended, I think, was that you read or you read the prompt. So you don't read the whatever, the fact pattern. I don't know if it's called a fact pattern on the LSAT, but you read the prompt. So then when you read it, you know what you're looking for. And that I think is useful. My problem I would notice on multiple choice questions is a lot of times when I would miss a question, the correct answer would be one of the ones on, like, it would be D or E. And that's clearly because I read it and then I read A, B. I thought it was right, circled it, didn't fully read D and E because my brain was like, oh, B is right, when B is really not right. And E would have been a better answer, but I didn't fully read E because I think I'm fucking shit. And I was like, oh, it's B. So if that's a problem you have, make sure that you don't fall into those same mistakes that I did. Also for LSAT, there is a bunch of words on there that you will never ever use again, but there are good guides online about commonly used LSAT words that, again, nobody fucking uses. But for some reason, they will test you on it. Have a great night. Thank you. Bye, everybody.